Welcome. We're going to wait just a minute for some more folks to jump in since our official start time is 6:40. Give people a minute to find the rooms. Okay, let's get started for the evening. Hope you enjoyed the keynote speaker. This first session, you are here with us for college entrance exams related to the SAT and ACT. Why, when, which, and how do I prepare? Tonight we have Molly Metz with us, the owner of Prep Northwest, to assist us with really learning about the SATs and ACT. And next slide, I'm going to go through and explain kind of how to ask questions. So there will be questions answered if there's time available. And the way that you ask questions is by going to the Q&A feature to ask a question. It's that little box where the arrow is pointing with a question mark in it. And then if you need to change language, you can go to that setting icon to change to a language or change for closed captioning so that it's also providing closed captioning as well as audio feed. So at this time, I'm going to pass it over to Molly and we'll be monitoring the chat for you tonight.
Great. Thank you, Maya. Can you guys see me? I'm hoping. So welcome. I'm Molly and I work at Prep Northwest. I've been in this business for over 20 years and all I do all day long is SAT, ACT world. So I'm a great resource for you. I'm very happy to get you all the information I can so you can relax and make the right choices for your family. So next slide. Our agenda tonight is this. There are quite a few updates, as you can imagine. That's why you're here. I'm going to tell you what's going on right now, and we're going to talk about what test optional really means for you. We're going to talk about whether you should even take this test or not, and if so, which one, and what would be a good plan for that. And there will be some, I'm thinking there will be some time at the end for me to answer some questions as well, but Maya's going to be helping in the chat. So send your questions there too. So next slide. All right, the pandemic. So no surprise that in 2020 we were not meeting in groups. And I really do think our area of the country and some parts of California had the toughest time out of anywhere. So it's actually a little surprising to me how many people did take a test this year. So testing was down just 40%, which to me in our area, I'm sure you know seniors and have some juniors too that have been, just most test stores have been closed. So of course, schools did the right thing. If you look in the middle, they moved to a more flexible testing policy. So schools basically have said, we know that you couldn't take a test even if you wanted to. So the class of 21 really did have that experience. And many students applied to UW or where have you without a test score. The class of 21 had the nice backup to say they actually couldn't take a test, or schools didn't know if they really could or couldn't. The class of 22 and beyond, schools will believe that you had a little bit more of an opportunity to take a test if you wanted to, because I'm happy to say that it does look like testing is going to open up quite a bit this summer and this fall, as I hope a lot of things around here do. So if you are a junior and you are scheduled right now for March or April or May or June testing, I would recommend just stay patient. Our company, we're seeing about half of our students get to take it and half of them even show up to the door and are turned away. So just try to keep that patient hat on. But it does look like testing is opening up for those who do want to take it. I would plan more summer and fall than banking on the spring. All right, next slide. So for the class of 22, the flexible testing policies will continue. Most of those schools, you're going to see that announcing probably in this month, probably mid-February and March, they're going to say, yes, we are continuing. But that is 100% the trend. They know we're still in this and not everybody is in the same boat. And even just mental health wise, we're not in the same boat as a typical year. So what we have seen is that about a third of the schools have this silly wording where you can sort of see that they are expecting you to have a score. So these third of the schools that I'm talking about, they are more Ivy League, more competitive, kind of more traditional academic schools that fall back on these numbers a little more and these rankings and magazines a little bit more. So they are having a little more trouble letting go, and their wording says basically that is sort of a yardstick we've always had, and we kind of would still like it if you can send it in. So it's not a blanket, hey, everything's test optional, everything's or test blind, or you probably heard the UC schools have dropped their testing. They're still taking some out-of-state testers, but for California students, they're not even taking any testing. So, yeah, next slide. So the big question is, where do you fall? If your students, I mean, I don't know how many students are on here tonight. I hope quite a few, because you're the ones who have to take the test and it's your life and it's your future. And if you are up for it, I would say you have nothing to lose. I would try to grab a date and I would do it. Even if you haven't done any prep, you seriously have nothing to lose. These scores are your property. They're like medical records. So you do have quite a bit of power. When you register for the test, just kind of say, I don't want to share any scores right now. And you can share if you want to down the road or not. I think that does give you just a little more opportunity to share or not share. And of course, on that fourth bullet where it says some state schools are still using this index that they're so used to using that has a GPA and a test score that can be tied to some money or placement stuff too. So I would say if you can mentally prepare that it would be wise to do so. And at the same time, there's a group where really just let it go. Some students, it wouldn't be the right thing to do. If your schools of interest are a little more smaller, liberal art, like a little more, you can tell in the wording of their policies, they are test optional or test blind. Especially if you don't submit a score, it does put more on everything else. So if your GPAs and your extracurriculars are a nice representation, it can be a nice opportunity not to have a score. If you feel like, you know what, the scores I'm starting with are a little bit more under that middle range, then just the mental health wise, I'm just being honest, I work with a lot of high school students I've been talking to some others, and it's a real thing that high school students are dealing with. So just do what's right for your student and your family. But for most of you, you're here because you are interested in going to college, and I would prepare to mentally, yes, take a test if you can. Next slide. And prepare to wear a mask. So when you take practice tests, wear a mask. Some more updates. The SAT and the ACT a year ago were so excited to introduce online testing, and both companies have dropped their online testing 100%. Their wording was very strange, and I don't see that. So I think there's some reason why they are not coming back. It's not going to be on the table again. So paper and pencil testing right now. You might have heard last month, the College Board, they make the SAT and the subject tests and the AP test and the PSAT. They announced that they are eliminating subject tests. I think that's nice, one less thing to worry about. And they are dropping the essay, which the ACT is going to follow suit very soon. So the essay is pretty much a done deal. Schools just aren't interested in it. So drop that off your plate, drop the subject test off your plate. It will put a little more emphasis on AP tests if that's in your future. And the ACT, they were a year ago very excited to introduce section retesting, where if you took one full-length ACT test, you could take a second test, but just one section or two sections or three sections. You could just choose. And they were pretty excited about that. They said they still want to do that, but they're so committed that people have the opportunity to take one full test that they want to make sure there's enough space for everybody to get in that wants to take a full-length test. So they're not going to introduce that right now either. We'll find, maybe in the summer we'll hear something new about the fall, but right now it's off the table. All right, next slide. So I am talking a lot about testing tonight, but of course, do keep this all in perspective. This is just one piece of a lot of beautiful information about your students that will be represented. GPA is always the number one thing. So the classes you're taking, that should always be your focus. So I see a question, what time frame are we talking about for these updates? Would policy change soon? I believe the question is about for test optional policies. Is that what you think, Maya? Right now, every school can do whatever the heck they want to do. And I do think it's actually a buyer's market. I know a lot of people apply and it's been competitive for a long time, but also there's been a lot of padding and inflating and other things going on too. I think admissions are very, very excited just to the best they can see people as a whole person, and they know this has been a different year. They're putting a lot of emphasis on essays, and truly they're trying to figure out how do we put less emphasis on scores. I think tradition is a little hard to get away from because this yardstick, you know, a 4.0 in one city is really different than a 4.0 even in the same city. And truthfully, there is a lot of grade inflation happening across the country. So it is tough for schools to sort of figure out what is a common yardstick. So that's why, you know, if they do have scores, I think it is a little helpful, but there's this big effort right now in admissions to how do we find another option? They haven't figured out what the next option is per se, but every policy, every admissions webinar that I have been on has said, we're going to stick to the same exact policy that we had last year for one more year. So the class of 22, you can pretty much expect what the class of 21 had. It's hard to know the class of 23, 24 and beyond. You know, the landscape changes quickly, and I'm sorry that life is unpredictable and it's taking a lot of patience for us to keep all this perspective, but I would just say take the information as it comes. I think it's wise to sort of the best you can keep a rhythm so that when things do open up, you're ready. And if not, then that's nice. You can cross it off your plate. I hope I'm answering that question. Let's do the next slide. All right, so let's say you are going to take a test. Which test should you take? Let's do the next slide. I would recommend you take 2 practice tests. A practice test for the SAT, a practice test for the ACT. I could tell you about both tests and you will hear things that you think are great about either one. And I've been doing this a very long time and I cannot predict what someone's preference is going to be. So next slide. You need to know which test that thanks Kelly. The test that you prefer is the one you should take. Schools have zero preference. I tell people this pretty much every day because for parents, that wasn't the case when we were applying to schools, and it takes a lot of convincing sometimes, but truthfully, There's no preference SAT or ACT, so there's really no need to take both. I would do the upfront work of doing a practice test in each and learn how do these scores compare. There are plenty of concordance tables out there. The majority of students actually fall in that middle grace area of they score about the same on both. So you just take the test that you preferred. Next slide. I would prepare to take 2 3-hour tests. It's your private information. I wouldn't take a real one as your practice go. I would just find yourself some practice tests. We offer them. I'm sure the school district is offering them too periodically. Use your PSAT for those of you who took the PSAT last month. You should be getting those scores around March, or if you log into your college board account, maybe even sooner, you can use that to compare. It's a pretty good read. And I promise you schools have no preference. So next slide. All right, I will tell you things about both tests, but I wouldn't bank on this being the tell-all. All right. Let's take a look at the ACT. So you have 4 sections, and you start with English, and then you go to math, and then you go to reading, and then you go to science. Science is the one thing that's pretty different about the 2 tests, and it's a very misleading title. Many of you might already know that it's really using science, charts, graphs, and data, and some dense passages to interpret information. So it's more of a reasoning test. So you can see, this reading section is 35 minutes. The English is grammar. Most students do grammar in about 7th grade, so you need to kind of review all those rules of commas and subject-verb agreement. That's next, if you can click for the SAT. So the SAT is very similar. The reading, though, the first half of the test is all verbal, so for some people that is a tough introduction to start with. You don't get to do math until the second half. But the writing section and the English section on these 2 tests are just the same section. The SAT's followed up the ACT English because it's a good editing type of test. And I would say the biggest differences are if you take a practice test and you have a strong ACT reading score, sometimes that I'll push someone over that way because the ACT reading is a college level test. You cannot fake that section. If you are a reader and you have a strong ACT reading score, it is so marketable to schools. They love strong reading scores and you can't fake that one. If reading is a little tougher, the SAT reading does allow you to piece apart information. Even if you don't understand the main idea, you can still grab quite a bit. And the math differs in that the ACT, there's no formulas provided, although both tests you should walk in knowing those 30, 60, 90 rules and such. And the SAT does have one section with no calculator. Some students, that's a little tougher. And some of the questions are fill in a grid. It's not A, B, C, D, 4 multiple choice options. It is fill in the grid. So some students have opinions about that free response as well. If you can press the next. So the tests are interchangeable. Next. It's possible they'll bring this back. They were talking about it, but their first priority, ACT said, was to make sure everyone can take a full-length test. Next. And it is common to take 2 tests because of this reason of super scoring. So many schools, not all, but many schools, if you take 2 SATs or 2 ACTs, they will be happy to combine those tests, the highest math and the highest verbal, to give you credit for all the points that you've earned. It makes them look good too, so that's why they're happy to do it. I love that you went. Awesome. And there's no score penalty on either test. So if you were taking a practice test, bubble everything in for luck. You can guess, guess, guess. Great. So oftentimes people want to know what scores mean. So next. On the SAT, about 1,000, and on the ACT, about a 21 is about the middle number, where about half the people are scoring above these scores and about half are scoring under these scores. And very few people fall in the ends. Most people jockey in the middle. This test is designed where it's designed to sort of be impossible. They don't want you to have enough time to finish a section, and they don't want you to be able to get them all right, even if you're really strong in an area. All got the same score, it just wouldn't serve its purpose. So they created this pretty steep bell curve. So students out there, if you are not finishing the test, that is 100% normal. It's not comfortable because we're not trained that way. You know, from kindergarten, you've been trained, I'm supposed to finish, right? Like that's the right thing to do. But let that go and know that you will likely not have enough time to finish, and that's okay. You do your best and you bubble for fun at the end. Perfect. And that you want to compare your score to something because you're a human being. However, try not to compare it to your GPA. GPAs are not on bell curves. So the best you can, just try to let these two pieces of information be two different pieces of information. We get this all the time. It just doesn't feel like this, it doesn't match my GPA. So SATs and ACTs, they don't measure, of course, how smart you are. They don't measure that. They're measuring how well you take that test, and it's just one little way of reading a whole person. But so when should you take these tests? The answer is, next slide. Whenever your student is ready, do your very best not to compare yourself to your cousins or your siblings or your friends. Pat them all on the back. They'll do what's right for them. They'll apply to the schools that are right for them. The world needs them just as they can contribute to the world, and you do your thing. So next slide. When is the test offered? They're both offered 7 times a year. We did see some extra dates come up in the past, so I don't know if SATs and ACTs will start to add on some dates. We'll find out, but right now this is what they are offering. So we have coming up right now, February, April, June. I put the summer dates in purple because July and August high schools are closed. So they're a little bit, there aren't quite as many options of locations to take those tests. So I wouldn't put all your eggs into that July, August, although it does sound really attractive. They do fill up really quickly. Any tests that are through June, you can register for right now, but the July, September, October, December, or the August, October, November, December SAT, those registrations won't open until after the school year's over. So they will open up in June. And then next year's PSAT is going to happen in October. AP tests are usually in May as you're planning things out. All right, next slide. So yeah, you can click through a couple of these bullet points, Kelly. So really, in a traditional year, it kind of looks like this. There's some juniors that are ready to play early. Most people kind of play in winter, spring, and then many seniors take it again in the fall. In fact, if you're taking 2 tests, it's pretty wise to take one in junior year, one in senior year. On one hand, if you can check things off this junior year, that's a nice gift. And at the same time, seniors just really thrive in these tests. They're a little older and they have a little fire under them, and they're kind of my favorite. But I do what's right for you. As you're thinking about prepping, 2 to 3 months prep is usually what we would recommend, but do what's right for you. And next. And that super scoring, we often see people taking it twice. You can keep going, Kelly. Okay, you can click through this. We recommend practice tests. Our programs have 4 practice tests, and you'll see this kind of pattern. So you want to learn from your mistakes and then try something new, or you're getting coaching from someone and you're trying something new because you don't want the same score you have. So do expect some up and down, and parents, please be gentle on your people. It's already vulnerable enough. So really don't blink an eyelash about scores at all. In order to maximize the day, you just have to get in the water and be in the process. And on average, just so expectations are clear too, someone who would do a course would go up about 100 points on the SAT, about 2 to 3 point equivalent on the ACT. So some people go up more than that, some people go up less than that. Like any coaching, what you put into it, you're going to get out of it. And like a sport or a hobby, if you want to keep playing and improving, you will. If you're done, then you're going to stay flat. Next. Our philosophy, next, yeah, you really want to master all three of these. So you do want to up your grammar and make sure you know your math formulas. But this middle pillar, behavior, that's where the real increase usually is. Especially for higher scoring students, it is how you take the test and how you manage your time and your accuracy. So these tests are not just do you understand slope, they are who is paying the most attention. And that is not a common skill set that many high school students have. It's a growing pain. It's a growth area right now. College is coming and information is coming a little bit quicker than usual. You're not used to writing things down, but there are a lot of great tactics you can do to help yourself just with your accuracy. Yeah, so overall advice, students, if you're here, fight that temptation to just get to the end. Really just try to do some clean, accurate work. Keep going. Write all over that test booklet. The more your hand is moving, the more you're staying connected. Keep going. And I do recommend that you keep reading. You're interested in going to colleges and universities, that's why you're here. And they are academic spaces. Practice tests are the backbone. They are no fun, I know. And take them on a Saturday morning with a mask on too. Not fun, but your future self will be very, very grateful. Okay, I'm gonna look at some of these questions that are coming in the chat too, so I can help answer some of these. Okay, what is the impact on college admissions of being a semifinalist on the national merit? Okay, so the PSAT you just took, if you're in the top 1%, you could get a title of national merit finalist. If you have, oh, you've answered all those, great. Maya's awesome. You're getting lots of support tonight. Oh, great. If you want a second opinion or a second perspective, yeah, the top 1% of PSAT students could get that national merit title. The top 2% could get that semi-finalist title, and that is a nice title. It's like winning the state championship in swimming or something. It's a nice title to have. It can be marketable. It can have some money attached to it. But the PSAT doesn't count for admissions. For 97% of the people, it really is just a chance to practice. So take it for the tool that it is. But the greatest thing about the PSAT is that you can log into your College Board account, create a College Board account, log in there, and use a password that you'll remember, because you're going to want to get in there a lot if you end up taking the SAT. And you can click on your scores, and you can even click on, it'll show you the numbers that you missed. If you missed number 12, you can click on it. It shows you the question, and it shows you what you put and what the right answer is. So please, you already put in the time to take the test. Get the value out of that and really learn from it is what I recommend. All right. So am I hearing, Maya, that we're done at 7:10? Is that what you're saying? I was thinking of 7:20. Okay, great. So yeah, I think we're coming to the end. I'm happy to be, if you want to throw in another question, throw it in there. I probably created some more questions for you. I'm happy to be whatever resource I can be. If you are able to take the test, then you don't have to. Yes, so if you are unable to take the test, of course, there's nothing you can do. I'm sure you've heard people going to Idaho or what have you to try to make things happen. But no, I mean, I do think testing will open up this summer and fall. I really do think you will have a chance if you'd like to. So it'll be a much smaller group that just really couldn't take a test. For those juniors that are trying to get in there now, I know it's taking quite a bit of patience. But I do believe in the summer and fall you will be able to. Well, I hope you got something out of this. It's been a pleasure to be with you in your living rooms on in this weird year. I do believe that the Bellevue School District will have this recording or have these slides available. So why don't you check back on their website if you are looking for more. Our company is happy to answer any questions too. You can always call. We talk to people all day long, just trying to answer questions. So happy to be a free resource. Just trying to look at some of these questions. Have a great rest of your night. If you're signing off, have a good session too. The next session starts at 7:20, so you have a 10-minute break, and then wherever you're supposed to be next, it starts at 7:20. All right, we're going to sign off then. Be well.
It is 7:20 and we want to welcome you to your second session tonight at the college conference in this virtual arena. So tonight you are with us for the college entrance exams, SAT and ACT, why, when, which, how do I prepare? Tonight with us we have Molly Metz, the owner from Prep Northwest, who will be going through the presentation tonight. I just want to call attention to the top of your screen where there is an option to ask questions. It's the little double box that has a question mark in it, and it's the question and answer piece, which will send messages to us, and we will be replying to them. So it is that opportunity for you to ask questions, and I'm going to be answering them in the chat, and Molly is also addressing them. And then there's also an option if you would like to set closed captioning. So take a peek at those two options. And now I'm going to turn it over to Molly.
Thanks. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Happy to have you here tonight. We're going to put up a new deck. Yes, and get you some answers. That's why you're here. All right, next slide. And we have Kelly here helping us out. So our agenda tonight is, of course, you're very curious what the heck is going on. What are all the updates? And what does test optional mean? Should you even take a test? And if so, which one and how to get ready for it? So here we go. We'll get 30 minutes of great information to you. And Maya's in the chat if you have questions. So next slide. All right, we're going to jump right in. So in 2020, we were not meeting in groups, especially in this area. So testing was down 40%. I'm actually pretty surprised it was only down 40% because in California and in our state, definitely King County and surrounding areas, really the testing came to almost a standstill. So for all of you who know seniors, or if there are any families on here, I feel for you. It was not an easy year for testing. So the middle sort of blurb does say, yes, schools did the right thing. Of course, they went to more flexible testing policies, and you could absolutely apply to schools without a test. They knew that even those who wanted to just couldn't. So class of 21 definitely had that going for them. Many people applied to UW without scores. And as you can imagine, schools are going to extend that one more year. Everyone's sort of making their announcements probably this month, next month, but the word on the street and every webinar I've been to has been, of course, we're still in a pandemic and flexible testing policies will continue. And then this last little bullet, the good news is that it really does look like things are going to start opening up again a little bit, and that people really will be able to take a test who want to. So this summer and this fall are dates that presumably you can count on a little more. If you are a junior and you are registered right now for a March or April or May or June test, keep your wits about you, keep perspective and balance, because it's still pretty unpredictable. The summer and fall test dates you cannot register for yet, by the way. Those will open up at the end of the year, but just mentally prepare. So even though schools will continue their flexible testing policies, I would pay attention to the schools of interest and how their wording is in their policies. If their wording looks a little bit like this, due to the pandemic or just for now, or if you can submit, please do, or we welcome other types of testing scores, those are going to come from more Ivy League, more competitive schools. What we're sort of seeing is it's close to a third of schools are saying, this is a yardstick we're kind of used to, and could you please give us a score if you can? You won't technically be at a disadvantage, but it is helpful to have just more information. So do pay attention to the schools of interest. Every school is so different, and policies are coming out now, but it will be optional. You can count on that. But as you're going to learn pretty soon, I think that it's wise to keep your options open. All right, next slide. So here we are. Should you take the test or not? My overall advice to the averages, I would say yes. Even if you're not going to do any prep, you really have nothing to lose. Your scores are your scores. They are your property. It's like medical records. So you give permission to share anything that you want to share. People don't know how many times you've taken or what any other scores were. You just share what each test score you want to share. So basically, I'm thinking I want to recommend that you plan on taking a test and then choose if you want to share it or not. Some schools are still using that index of a GPA and a test score to help allocate some money and even some placement options. So it might be nice just to not close any windows. That said, it's a weird year and everybody's on their own path. So do what's right for your family, for your student. There are some schools you're going to be looking at their policies and they're really truly, their wording is saying that we're probably going to let go of tests for good. It's a smaller school, it's a more liberal arts school. I have a really strong application outside of these scores. Maybe testing is already, I'm under the middle numbers, and so it would be a little bit more effort to stand out on this front. And let's just be really honest, this has been a tough year. And so pay attention to what each student needs. And so letting something go might be the right thing to do this year. But to the averages, I would recommend plan on taking one. Next slide, and prepare to take it with a mask. So some more updates. A year ago in these presentations, I was saying SAT and ACT we're fully planning to create online testing options, and they have canceled all of that. There is zero future for online testing for SAT and ACT right now. And happy birthday, everybody. The College Board, who makes the SAT test and the subject tests, has announced that they are eliminating the subject tests. So you can take that off your plate. Subject tests, if you don't know what they were, great, don't worry about them. And if they were on your mind, you can let them go. They were 1-hour tests in different subjects like physics or literature. And some more competitive schools were asking for them, or some students just wanted to share that they really were great at biology. So those are gone. In fact, anyone who was registered for May or June, I believe, is getting a refund. They are done. So no more subject tests, which will put a little more on that AP and IB world for placement things, but that AP is not used for admissions. The College Board has also shared that they are no longer offering the essay. They are not refunding people. So if you did register for May or June and you did register for the essay, you can cancel it if you want. I would recommend it. Schools just really aren't interested. The ACT, we predict, will be following very shortly, dropping their essay. Schools just aren't interested. So that's very nice. A shorter test than it used to be and less hassle. And you might have heard once upon a time, so ACT was going to roll out last fall, ACT section retesting, where students who already had one full-length ACT test under their belt and they wanted to take a second one, they could choose not to take the full test. They could choose to take just one subject or 2 or 3 subjects. ACT said their first priority is that everybody who wants to has a chance to take a full-length test. So they are holding, that's all they've said. That right now, that section retesting is on hold. We might get new information in the next month or so, but right now I would not plan on it for the fall. So I always like to just say, although this is what our half hour is about right now, let's keep some perspective. Test scores are just one part of a lot of great information about you. And whatever shiny pieces you have are going to shine. So I wouldn't put, GPA is always the most important piece, the courses you take and how you're doing in them. So put your focus there and just continue to be an interesting person. Schools really are excited about admissions. I do think they do want to fill up their seats. I think it's been a different kind of time for them. They know this isn't going to last forever, but they are struggling too. So they want their laboratories full, they want great alumni, and they are looking for you. So continue to be an interesting person, and it's all going to work out just fine. All right, next slide. So if you are going to take one, which one should you take? Let's talk about it. Next slide. Well, I recommend you take 2 practice tests, and then you'll know. So I would take an SAT and an ACT, and you're going to learn which one you prefer. Maybe your scores gravitate toward one, maybe you score about the same, but you just know that you liked one more than another. Pretty much every day, people ask me, which one should I take? And just tell me a little bit about both, and I'll decide, don't left-handers do better on one test or don't, no. So really, you just have to take a test in each to learn which one is your preference. They are 3 hours in length. They are private information. So I would recommend just taking practice tests where you can get your hands on them. We offer them. You can find them free online. You can find them, I think school districts sometimes offer them. So just keep your eyes and ears open. You can definitely use a PSAT. If some of you took a PSAT last month, you should be getting your results in March, maybe sooner if you log on to your College Board account. But schools have zero preference on which test you take. This is different than years past. When I was applying to school, of course, different areas of the country preferred one test over the other, or different types of schools, but that is all old news. Schools have zero preference. So whichever test you prefer. Even though I said try not to base your decision off this, I do want to educate you what these tests are about. ACT is on a 36 points. You have 4 sections. You have English multiple choice, math multiple choice, reading multiple choice, and science. It really drives me a little crazy that they call it a science section. I wish they had called it a reasoning section. They're not testing you what a neuron is or what your background in science is. It's more like a reading section. They are testing who can interpret charts and graphs and data that are experiments. The SAT, it starts out, the first half is verbal. So reading is 65 minutes, and then the grammar, which is very similar to the ACT English. In fact, the SAT just kind of swallowed up the ACT English section when they revamped many years ago. The second half of the SAT is math. There's one section with no calculator, and both math sections, there are a few questions that are free response, where you fill in a grid what your answer is, so they're not multiple choice. Again, schools have no preference. And that third bullet where it talks about super scoring, many students do take an SAT or an ACT twice because of super scoring. If you do get that opportunity, then most schools do super score, but not all. But UW does. If you take a test in the spring and you score well in math, and you take a test in the fall and your verbal is higher that day, they will combine the 2 tests. They want the credit too. They want to look good too. Your scores become their scores, and they would love to brag about how great their applicants are. Actually, Kelly, go one back. That very last bullet point, any students who are here, of course, you need some free good information. Please bubble B for fun. There's no score penalty, so always guess. All right, the next slide. So let's talk about what scores mean. So on the SAT, about 1,000, ACT about a 21, those are the middle numbers. So out of all the people that take these tests, half the people score above those scores, half the students score below those scores. Very few people fall on the ends of the bell curve. Most people jockey in the middle. And in the next bullet, most people want to compare their scores to something. And so, of course, we go to our GPA. We're human beings. And try not to do that. They really are different pieces of information, so do try to let them be different pieces of information. GPAs are not on bell curves, so just let them be different. All right, so when should you take this test? Well, I did say summer and fall are more predictable opportunities, but let's say, I don't know how many sophomores are in the house, rising juniors. If that is you, next slide. You should just do what is right for you. So really ignore what your cousins did and what your siblings have been up to and what your buddies are doing. Pat them on the back. They'll take the test dates that are right for them. You'll take the test dates that are right for you. You'll apply to the schools that are right for you. You'll contribute to the planet in the way that only you can. So cheer each other on, and you do you. The tests are often offered pretty much most months of the school year when we can. So here are the 2021 dates. We have February, April, June coming up for ACT. We have March, May, June coming up for SAT. And then in purple, I put the summer dates. I put them in purple because I do want to mention that the summer dates, high schools are closed, and often these tests are administered in high schools. And so there are fewer seats available. Maybe this year will be a little different because everyone really wants to help everybody out. But I wouldn't bank on those entirely because very few people actually get to take those. It's like signing up for a college class. You got to kind of jump right on it. And these registration won't open for the next school year for that July, September. I'm sorry, for September. You can register for July, actually, I think now. But September, October won't open for ACT. And then that August, October, November, December won't open for SAT until June, till the end of the school year. And then they open up the whole next school year. That's how they do it. And then the PSAT will come up in October. APs are in May, just as you're thinking about your life. IBs, of course, too. Yeah, so don't worry about what your cousins are doing. So sophomores who are on the call, yeah, some people are ready early. Some people do want to take a test, kind of prep in the summer, takes an early test junior year. Some juniors just aren't ready to do that mentally, so don't worry about it. Wait, so parents, I know you and I could have a conversation of, yeah, take it early, that would be smart. Just be patient. When the fire comes, it'll be such a nice return on investment of time and any resources you choose to put into it, so I would just be patient. A lot of people do take it kind of winter, spring. Some people might not take their first one until senior year. It's all perfect. They all count for admissions. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Next slide, or next bullet. If you are going to do like a full kind of course, it is about once a week for about 2 to 3 months, about 10 weeks. And with that super scoring, we do have sophomores in the house tonight or younger. It is wise to take it twice if you are going to take the test because you can do that super scoring. All right. All right, Kelly, if you can just do a couple clicks so I can see this visual. So practice tests really are the backbone of a score increase, and this is a trend that we tend to see. So as you're learning something new, like you're learning the guitar or you're holding the softball bat differently, it's gonna feel a little awkward. So if your scores are staying the same, if you're at home and you're taking practice tests and your scores are staying the same, it just means you're probably doing the same thing. And so you do want to do something different to get a new score, and it's gonna do its own thing. So at home, parents, if you can help everybody just relax and try not to blink an eyelash about the scores right now. Just let everybody just get in the water, be proud of yourself. Hey, I took a test. This is gonna help. A course like ours, on average, we're seeing about a 100-point increase on an SAT, a 2 to 3 point equivalent on the ACT. So just to keep everyone's perspective, sometimes parents were like, it's only out of 36 points. Like, I don't know, let's move 6 points. That sounds pretty easy, but it is only out of 36 points. So every point's a pretty big deal. All right, and here's a little free info for you. Our philosophy is that in order to master this test, there are 3 worlds that are wise to give some attention to. Content, you do want to remind yourself, what are those 14 grammar rules that I will be tested on, and get those down. What are those old math formulas that I haven't seen in a while? Get those down. That will help your score. This middle pillar, I believe, will impact your score even more. So don't learn any new information, and you can increase your score quite a bit by just the way you take the test, how you manage your 65 minutes, or and the accuracy of it all. So many of us, I'm sure students, if you're here, you have gotten a test back and looked at the question and you think, I did know that. Why did I put X? They wanted 2X. Why did I do that? Like, my algebra was great. I just didn't read it right. So that happens. And we want to help you, or you want to help yourself really clean up your work so that you have nice, accurate work, which is a skill that you'll be mastering as you move into college. That's a skill that you're going to need and want. And then, of course, the mindset, so that you're ready to go. And actually, families, you can do the most help here with mindset. If you're at the dinner parties, don't talk about scores. If you get back in the car and you heard someone's cousins talking about scores, just remind high school students, just pat them on the back. They're doing their thing. You're all perfect and great. You're amazing. Your life's already worked out. It's going to continue to work out. You're going to have options. The seniors always end up somehow. They apply. Everyone gets it in, and you're going to have options. So yeah, help keep it healthy, open. It's all going to work out. Some more advice. I do recommend that you slow down. So these tests are so goofy. I told you about that big bell curve where they're designed to sort of be impossible, where you don't have enough time to finish, where even if you're really strong in that subject area, you're not going to get them all right, most likely. It's purposely designed that way so that everybody has different scores. If the strong of the strong all got the same score, it just wouldn't serve its purpose. So I am guessing everyone who's taken a test has had that feeling. I did not have enough time to finish, and I'm very uncomfortable. Of course you are, because you've been trained to finish, but it's okay. Slow down, try to do clean work, and then bubble for fun. We also advise really interact with your test, circle keywords so that you're nice laser beam focused on what you need. Use your finger if you'd like, annotate. The more you're crossing off wrong answers, that just feels good. Right all over your test booklet, you will get more points. And you're looking to go to college, so it's an academic space. I encourage you to keep up your reading. If you're out there and you have a strong verbal score, it is very marketable. Schools really like great readers. They feel comfortable that you're going to be you're going to keep up as a student. You're going to be a nice alum. It's a nice skill. So keep reading, and I hope you're interested in things in the world. The more you start to learn, the more you are interested. So keep opening up to that and take practice tests. It's not just taking the test, it's learning from it. So taking the test will take you 3 hours, but I would put just as much effort into that magnifying glass on what could I learn? What did I miss? Why did I put that? Why is it the right answer? What could I do differently? Well, we've had a really quiet Q&A, like question little comment here. So Maya is on call, and I think the thread has kept itself from the first session. But if you do have a question, throw it up there. We do have some more time. Happy to be a resource. I'm assuming there are people out there, but and I hope you learned something tonight. Kelly, if you want to go back to that slide that talks about SAT versus ACT. It's right in the middle, of course. Where are some nice sites for practice tests? So the College Board has, one of the questions says, what are some good practice tests? The College Board has released 10 tests, 8 that are really easy to get to. And those are what we think are the best you can get your hands on, because that's made by the test makers. The ACT, there are old tests out there if you search for them, but they're not as over the counter. It's harder to get them. They do have a book with 5 tests in them. You're very welcome. But I would say if you're not doing a course anywhere, I would use those tests because they're made by the test makers. That's what the font's going to look like. That's the level of difficulty it's really going to be. If you are going to take a course somewhere, I actually would save a lot of those for when you're taking a real practice test, not just a curriculum practice, but someone asked, is it beneficial to take both SAT and ACT? Every student is so different. For the majority of people, I just say do other things with your life. Just do one and do other things with your life. But the profile of someone that I find, I've been doing this 20 years, that does take both is someone who is a pretty strong test taker and who's pretty comfortable in that environment. And they kind of just want to share, like, I really am a blah, blah, that's the score I'm at. But I would say for the majority of people, don't bother. The ACT and SAT tests available during the summer months. I'm a junior and feel as though spring is too soon. Perfect. You follow your gut. You're right. You're the one who's going to sit there and do it. Don't take a test till the fall or, like late summer. Sadly, there's an ACT in July and there's an SAT in August. They might offer more just to be kind because it's been tough on everybody to get tests in. But if you want to take a test in August, an SAT test, you do have to pay attention. They don't have the exact date that they're opening up registration, but you got to kind of be on it in June to register for an August test. But you're fine. Take your first one as a senior. You'll be just fine. They all count for admissions. Thanks, Kelly, for putting that up. And I love that a student asked a question. We still have 5 minutes, so if you would like to rest as a family, you enjoy your evening and be safe out there. I hope you learned something. And if you would like to hang for a little bit, I am here, happy to answer any questions. Kidding, not kidding. Is ACT, SAT prep going to be a thing? I have no idea. I think it's slowly kind of, you know, it's, I think it's going to be a thing of the past. You're very welcome for the insights. But I also see there are some schools that are just holding tight. These more competitive, they're just more traditional. They're just slower to, they're holding on to numbers a little more. The problem is that there's not another option. Schools really do, they're so used to this yardstick of just one little data piece of something. Okay, you mentioned that SAT subject tests and SAT essays have been eliminated for good. Why are they eliminated? And are there other substitutes? The SAT essay and ACT essay, which are optional, originally the idea was this will be very helpful for schools, but it turned out schools just aren't using them. Schools aren't interested in them. And it actually is a hassle for them as a business to, I mean, imagine they have 2 readers for every essay. Yeah, so that one has faded. The subject tests also, schools used to require them and then many dropped the requirement. I think they just kept them because they were making money off them, truthfully. Some homeschool students were asked to take a math or something just to kind of show a yardstick. Some honors programs were asking for them. And that's why I think AP tests will be people will give a little more attention to their AP and IB tests. We do have practice tests. Ours are $55, so if you want to try to get free ones, they're out there. We have a great, but yeah, we have ACTs, SATs. That's what we do. You're very welcome. All right. Well, good luck out there. If you do have questions, I think the BSD website's going to have this recording or our slides, and you're very welcome to reach out to us, or we're happy to be a resource. How can I stand out among other applicants if the College Board got rid of subject tests? Schools will be looking at your essay. You're very welcome. I've heard admissions has just said they're very, very, very excited to be reading essays. They want to know what interests you. Who are you? That's the piece that we'll share. What are you adding to the class? What lights you up? If you got with a company like yours, how many hours? Our programs are about 10 weeks. So 10 1.5-hour lessons, 4 practice tests. So it's like adding on a little sport. You know, there's an event and you have a coach and you go to practice. But I do believe score increase happen when you look back at the questions that you missed and you learn from them, just like in regular school. All right, looks like we have about 30 seconds left together. Enjoy your break. Your next session starts at 8. And yeah, be safe. Thanks for your time.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to wait just one more minute for people to jump on since our start time is at 8 o'clock. So give me just a minute and then I'll introduce the session and give one quick reminder for you. All right, it is 8 o'clock and it is go time. So tonight, thank you for joining us for our first virtual college conference. We are so thankful to have you here with us and thankful for our presenters. Tonight in this third session, you have college entrance exams, SAT, ACT, why, when, which test, and how do I prepare? Our presenter tonight is Molly Metz, the owner from Prep Northwest. And I'm gonna advance one slide and give you two reminders, which are, oh, and not that slide. So here's our reminders. Our reminders are about question and answer. So if you have a question, feel free to throw it into the chat, which is the little box that has a question mark in it for you to ask questions. We are answering them in the chat, and also Molly has been answering them live as well. So we will give you responses to questions. And similarly, if you need to set closed captioning, click on that icon on the top to set closed captioning. And then one more announcement before I turn it over to Molly. At the end of this session, since it's the end of our night, there is a closing slide that we'll come back to. And it has a survey link asking you to fill out a survey. And that survey link we will also post in this chat so that you're able to access it here within this chat. I am going to turn it over to Molly now.
Thank you, Maya. Welcome, everybody. Happy to be here tonight. We have 30 minutes to get some great information about college testing, and Maya is on call. So if you have questions, this is your night and we want to answer them. So fire away. So again, my name is Molly. I've been in this business over 20 years full time, and I'm quite an expert. So you can trust that you're getting good information. Happy to be a resource. Yeah, let's go to the agenda. And this is what we're going to be talking about. I'm sure you're curious what the heck is going on. A lot of updates with SATs and ACTs. And the big question, what does test optional really mean? Should you take a test? Should you not take a test? If you are going to take a test, which one should you take? And what would be a good plan for that? So let's go. Let's start with what's going on in the world right now. So I'm sure many of you have heard from seniors, if you don't have them in your households already, that last year was a really hard year to be in groups testing. Testing was down 40%, which to me was even surprising because in our area and in some parts of California, it was pretty much no testing. So in this middle sort of row, you can see schools really did do the right thing, and they moved to flexible testing policies. So of course they knew people who even wanted to take a test couldn't, and a lot of seniors applied to schools. They applied to UW without a score, which was fine. The good news is that come summer and fall, it really does appear that there will be more options for you. So if you are a junior and you are currently planning on taking a test this March or April, May, or June, I would prepare to be a little flexible and patient, because I would say about half of our students are able to show up and take a test, and some are, maybe you even know last weekend, plenty of students showed up at the door and weren't able to get in. So keep your beautiful perspective during this crazy experience we're having, but it does look like things are going to open up again in summer and fall. Okay, test optional. What the heck does that mean? So as I just said, last year, so the seniors that were applying could pretty much at any school apply without a score. There are only really 3 schools that were demanding it. This next year, not everybody's announced what they're doing, but the trend is, the word on the street, all the webinars I've been to have been absolutely, they're going to continue the same policies from last year for another year. Our current juniors are in this, we're in the same scenario, we're in a very similar scenario. However, there are some, the wording is not the same at every school, so do try to pay attention to which schools you're looking at and what their testing policies actually say. If you see some of this wording over here to the right, you know, due to the pandemic, for just 1 more year, please submit what you can, we'll accept other scores. This you're going to find more in an Ivy League, a little more competitive, traditional arenas that they really are kind of expecting and hoping that you will give them a score. It's a yardstick they're kind of used to, and they are hoping for it. But that's not all schools, so that's about a third. So a lot of them just do what's right for you. So here we go. Should you take the test? I would say I am recommending for the averages, yes, plan on taking a test, only just to keep your doors open. Even if you just took a test with no prep, you have a choice from there to do whatever you would like to do with it. Those scores are yours. It's private information. It's like medical records. You would give permission anytime you wanted to release those scores to somebody. So no one knows that you took a test or what the scores were, but it does give you the chance to choose. And of course, that 4th bullet where it says there still are some programs that are based on an index of GPA and scores that are giving out some money and some placement. So I think it is beneficial if it's reasonable for you to just get in there and get one on the books. However, you know, let's be real. Not every student is in, that's not actually the right thing for everybody. Because you don't need a score to apply, really do think about, maybe the schools I'm looking at are more holistic in their applications and they're announcing it that way. They're smaller in size. The rest of my application is looking pretty nice. I can lean on all of that. And maybe even scores that are a little lower, you might just want to put your energy into other things. It's up to you. And that last one, of course, we just need to be real. It's been a tough year. So if pushing on one more item isn't the right thing for your student or your family, don't do it. You don't need to. So there's kind of a middle answer. Here's some more updates for you. You might have heard about a year ago, SAT and ACT companies were announcing they were going to roll out some online testing, and both companies have stopped that. They're not going to do that anymore. They've stopped putting their funding into that. There is no online testing in the future for SAT, ACT. You might have heard last month, just actually a couple weeks ago, the College Board, who makes the SAT subject tests and the SAT, they announced they've eliminated the subject tests. Those were 1 hour in length multiple choice tests in different subjects that some more competitive schools were requiring, or some students just wanted to kind of share that information. So if you don't know what they are, don't worry about it. And if you didn't know what they were, you know, it's good news. You can take that off your plate. In fact, you can't even take one. Anyone who was registered for May and June, they refunded them. So subject tests are done. And the SAT essay is also done. They aren't refunded. They're still offering this option for May and June, March, May, and June, I should say. But I would say, if you're already registered for them, I would even just say, I wouldn't bother with it. The essay is really just dying off, and the ACT company is predicted to follow suit very soon. And the ACT announced that they were going to offer section retesting last fall. That means if you took a full-length test and you wanted to take a second ACT, you could choose just to take 1 section or 2 or 3 sections. They're putting that on hold because they're saying that they wanted to make sure that everybody who wants to take a full-length test has that opportunity. There's been a backlog of sorts, so they just want to make sure everybody who wants to can take a full-length test. So right now that's on hold. Who knows what they'll announce next month, but I wouldn't count on anything right now. So we are talking about testing, but I do want to keep perspective. It's just one piece of a lot of great information. Do keep your energy on your GPA. That always carries the day. And just continue to keep being an interesting person. All of these things matter. Schools are very interested in getting to know you, and they do want to fill up their campuses. I do think it's kind of a buyer's market right now. I think they really do want to fill their seats, and they really do want to know who you are. So just keep it all in perspective. This is not the biggest or only piece of the pie. It's just one piece of information. Okay, so if you are thinking, all right, here we go, we're going to take a test. Which one should I take? Truthfully, the only way to answer that, I believe, is for each student to take a practice test in both. So take a full-length SAT, take a full-length ACT practice test that's private, that's yours. And then you'll learn. Do you prefer one over the other? And then I would put your eggs in that basket. So you might score, you can go back one, Kelly. You might score about the same in each test, and that's, if that happens to you, then you just decide which test feels better. But I don't think you do not need to take both tests. A question came up in our last session. Is there anyone that takes both tests? Should I take both tests? I believe you have other things to do with your life. Just pick one. They're both very coachable. Put your best foot forward. That'll be a great piece of information for you. And it's very, very rare for someone to take both. I think someone who takes both, it's coming from the student, not the parent. And it's someone who's kind of comfortable in that environment and probably pretty successful and just wants to kind of show, yeah, I can score well in both. So the tests are about 3 hours. So do prepare a Saturday or something where you can take a practice test, and the second Saturday where you can do that again. I would do it. I wouldn't take a real one as your baseline. The comparison, I would take a practice one. You can do that. You can pay for that with companies like mine. You can find them online for free. So maybe they're offered at the school, but I would get that information. You can use your PSAT as an SAT. It's very common. Those results, if you're a junior and you took it last month, those results should be getting back to you around March. If you create an account with the College Board, you can log in and maybe get those scores sooner. And tidbit, I would do that. I would log into your College Board account, look at your PSAT score, and you can see the questions that you missed, and you can click on them and learn what the question was and what you put in, what the right answer is, and you can actually learn from it. So the key to any increase is learning what to do differently. And I promise you, schools really don't have any preference whether you take an SAT or an ACT. No school has a preference. So that wasn't the case years ago, but it is the case now. And really, I tell people every day, I promise you that is true. All right, next slide. I will share a little bit about each test. So the ACT is out of 36 points. Starts with multiple choice English, and then math, and then you have reading, and then science. The reading is 35 minutes long, so it seems a little shorter than the SAT reading, which is 65 minutes long, but the ACT reading is a college level reading test. It's actually both the reading and the science. They're 35 minutes and they're 40 questions, and a lot to read outside of that. So it moves quickly. And the science section is a little misleading. It's not, you don't need any outside science knowledge. They're not asking what is a neuron or what's your background in biology. They're wanting you to interpret charts and graphs and data from experiments. So no outside knowledge needed. SAT is out of 1600. The first half is verbal, 65 minutes of reading, 35 minutes of writing, and then the second half is math. The writing on the SAT and the English on the ACT truly are the same multiple choice test. You're the editor and you have to piece out some grammar and some editing. For the math, for the SAT math, you are provided formulas, 30, 60, 90 triangle sort of formulas. ACT does not provide any math formulas for you. However, the SAT math has that one section, the third one, where there's no calculator allowed. Some people have an opinion about that. And then there also are questions in both of those SAT math sections where you fill in a free response versus a multiple choice. All right, next little bullet. Again, schools have no preference, and I wouldn't count on section retesting, but I have a feeling it's going to come back in the fall, but can't promise it. And then the next bullet point, you might have heard of super scoring. Many schools do this, not all schools, but many schools will take, if you took 2 SATs or 2 ACTs, they would combine those 2 tests if you had a higher math on one and a higher verbal on another. They want to give you that credit. On both tests, the SAT and the ACT, there is no penalty for incorrect answers, so please bubble away. Don't leave anything blank. Don't leave any money on the table there. So what do these scores mean? So they say that the middle number on the ACT is a 21 and the middle number on the SAT is 1,000, about 1,020. That means about half the people who take the test are scoring above those scores, and about half the people who take this test are scoring below those scores. Very few people are on the ends, most people jockey in the middle. So a mistake we often make is we want to compare it to something, so we're comparing it to our GPA, but truly a GPA is a different piece of information. GPAs are not on bell curves, and just let them be different pieces of information. All right, so when should you take this? Well, the answer is whenever your student is ready. I think as parents, we can sometimes be thinking ahead a little more and really wanting, like, why don't you get a head start? Which is great advice to share, but I'd listen to your student. When your student is ready, that's the best time for them to take the test. So just be patient, families. Let's do the next slide. The test is pretty much offered most months of the school year. So these are the 2021 test dates. We have some coming up here through June. ACT, we have February, April, June. Then there's one summer test in July. And then in the fall, you have September, October, December. SAT, we have a March one coming up, a May and a June. And then they're offering a summer, August, and then October, November, December. I did put the summer ones in purple just to highlight that those summer test dates, very few people actually get to take those dates because schools are not open and there are fewer seats. I hope this summer might be different because everyone's trying to help everyone out, but registration is not open yet for those summer and fall dates. The SAT and ACT registration for the next school year will open up this June at the end of this school year. And as you're thinking about your planning, the PSAT comes up in October. The PSAT does not count for admissions. It's just a great chance to practice. If you do score in the top 1%, you can get a title of National Merit Finalist. If you are scoring in the top 2%, you might get a title of National Merit Semi-Finalist, and that merit title does come with some money, which is nice, and it comes with, you get to say that title. It's like winning the top level of a sport or something. But for the majority of people, 97% of the people, it's just practice. And it won't be on your record. It's just for practice, and it's a great chance to learn. All right, next slide. All right, I just want to relax everybody. Do not worry about what anyone else is doing. What your cousins are doing, what your friends are doing. I know everybody's talking, and being a high school student is a vulnerable public space. I'm sorry. That's the best part maybe about this whole being at home, is that all that comparison stuff, we're just kind of is at bay a little bit. Pat everyone else on the back when they share, but really parents, don't be sharing at the dinner parties about scores. It's really irrelevant. You do you, let everyone else do them. They're going to take the test that's right for them, the test date that's right for them. They're going to do the prep that's right for them, and they're going to apply to the schools that are right for them. So some junior, if we have sophomores on the event tonight or younger, some students really are ready. They're already thinking ahead. Maybe they have older siblings, or maybe they're just kind of college bound thinking, and they really are ready to take an early test in the fall of their junior year. A lot of juniors are not. That's just not where their mind space is yet. So families, just be patient. Maybe you'll take your first one in winter, spring, and maybe you'll take a second one in the fall. Maybe you'll take your first one in the fall. They all count for missions, and there's no right or wrong way to do it. So just do it your way. Next slide, next. And sorry, if you can go back. I did want to share, if you are thinking about prep, we kind of have a plan that's like a full course would be about 10 weeks, once a week sort of meeting. So that kind of rhythm is where you would see that sort of 100-point increase on the SAT, 2 to 3 points on the ACT. All right, next slide. Okay, so practice tests are the backbone of prep. And this is the trend we tend to see. I like the visual so that families aren't surprised when there's fluctuation happening. It's actually a really good thing. I get excited when scores dip on the second test, and I think to myself, oh, you're trying something new. That is excellent. It will probably feel uncomfortable to try something new, to hold the bat differently, or to, shoot the ball differently. So to get a new score, you do need new behaviors. So expect some fluctuation. Families at home, reward the process and don't blink an eyelash about the scores. The way to get a top score is actually to let go of the scoreboard and just be with the ball, if that metaphor made sense. So just try to focus on the process and everything will work out well. Just to keep expectations, wanted to share that an average increase for a standard type of prep would be about 100 points on the SAT, 2 to 3 points on the ACT. Some people go up a lot more than that. Some people go up less than that. Sort of what you put into it, you will get out of it. It really is no different than learning an instrument or playing a sport. And you are here tonight, students who are here tonight. Here is our philosophy. In order to master this test, you do want to up your content. That will change your score. The more grammar you know, and the more math formulas you have, slope inside and out, and when to recognize that they're asking for it, that will help. But this middle pillar, out of all the years I've been doing this middle pillar of your habits, your test taking habits, how you behave when you take the test, that changes your score even more than growing your content. So this is because the tests are not just about content, they are about accuracy. So who's paying the most attention? So you're going to want to get some new behaviors to do cleaner work, write more than you're going to want to, and slow down a little more than you're going to want to, and read a little more carefully than you're going to want to. And that behavior of doing clean work will pay off big as you age too. And mindset like a sport. And at home, you can help with mindset. When there's a lot of talk and pressure about other people's scores or what schools are looking for, it can really, just like performing at a swim meet. I mean, it really can kind of not open you up to what's possible, but kind of clamp you down. So families just love on each other and it's all going to work out great. And you have amazing students, you really are cool and interesting people, and just continue to be so. Yeah, some more advice for any students in the house. The biggest thing we hear is, I did not have enough time to finish my sections. And that is because it is designed that way. It is designed to be kind of impossible, where the best of the best, they won't get the same score. It just wouldn't work if a whole bunch of people clumped into like an 800 or something, or a 36. So they've created this bell curve, and it's not even easy, medium, hard. It's kind of easy, medium, like really hard. So fight that temptation to just push yourself and rush because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do. I think you're going to see a much higher score by just keeping a rhythm and working on accuracy, and then bubbling B for fun at the end. All right. Our philosophy is also that the more you're writing down and the more you're participating, just like in life, the more you participate, the more you get out of it, you will get a higher score. The more you write all over that test booklet, you're circling keywords, you're keeping your focus, you're using your finger, you're annotating a little bit, you're crossing off what's wrong because it feels good, and it gets the garbage out of the way. All right. And of course, you're applying to colleges and universities, so keep your academic, reading is a lot of it. So, yeah, and take practice tests. Well, take practice tests if you can commit to actually reviewing it. If you take the test and don't ever look back at it, you're just going to keep doing what you're doing because you think it's the right thing to do. So definitely take the time to learn from your mistakes. But yeah, we do have 5 more minutes. So if I have not been paying attention to the Q&A, so let me give my attention there. All right, so Washington State Schools. Let me move over to, I'm currently a freshman, just starting right now to prep for that. So give me a competitive. Great question, and I'm glad you're here. It is hard to know even how popular these are going to be in 3 years or 2 years. But I would say right now, take a practice test every 6 months, like one every 6 months. I don't think you need to go full press. People who do take practice tests are more comfortable. So there are some schools where the sophomores and freshmen take the PSAT and those students really are more comfortable. So I would put yourself in the environment. If you know, hey, I'm college bound, I'd like to represent well, I would just ease yourself into it. But I would say take a practice test every 6 months, and that is a lot. That'll be great, I think. But everybody is so different. If you want to pull it towards you, then pull it towards you. If you feel like you need to do it for any other reason, I wouldn't. I would just be patient. Maya, is there anything else I'm missing here? What is a low SAT score for the universities in Washington? The crazy thing about scores is no score guarantees you anywhere, and no score really takes you out of contention anywhere. A perfect score does not guarantee you anywhere. That's just not everything they're looking for. They need to know who are you and what are you contributing to this class of students. So let them know who you really are and what lights you up and who they can expect on their campus. That's going to carry the day. So I'm sure that you've done the research. The College Board has a search engine. I don't know if Bellevue School District uses Naviance or sorry, Maya, I don't know which one you guys use, but there are search engines out there. One's called Big Future. If you Google Big Future College Board, they have a pretty good search engine. So you guys use Naviance. You can research the schools of interest and they'll share score ranges for their middle 50th percentile. So there are still people scoring under this range and there are still 25% of people scoring above this range. But if you look at those ranges, you can kind of put yourself in the middle of that. I would just relax about your scores. And if that's not where you are, it's okay. A lot of people get in that aren't. It's at that level. If you're in that top half, the admissions folks, they don't blink an eyelash about your scores anymore because you're not going to bring down any averages or like that part is kind of more than they need. So, I mean, depending on the school, sometimes a little inching can make a difference, or if you're an athlete and sometimes, they want to also bring you on board because of the instruments you play or the sports you play, what you're contributing. But yeah, there's really no guarantee about any of it. All right, and on the opposite side, I don't think any score really takes you out of contention fully either. So did I get all of these? I'm gonna go over to the Q&A. Well, we have 2 minutes left. Throw in some questions if you still have them. What is the test? How important is it for a student to show work during high school in the field they're applying to? Yeah, I think that one, I'm not an expert in admissions. I am an expert in these tests, but I would talk to your guidance office about how to make sure that you're representing yourself well for the schools and programs of specific interest. Let me move over to this question. Thanks for your patience. I have 2 chats I'm trying to follow, and it's just loading up for me. What SAT score does Washington University accept versus Stanford? Well, if you look at those middle 50th percentiles, the Stanford one, it is pretty ridiculously high. A lot of students are going there that are score pretty well on standardized tests. And if that's a place where you feel like that's a good fit for you, then you're probably already scoring about that too. And if not, then, you know, just, I would say one thing your guidance offices will share with you is there are hundreds of schools that you've never even heard of. So we're kind of know the brand names, but really be open to what type of school would be right for you. What score should you withhold? I don't think you should withhold anything, truthfully. Everything I have heard is that schools are relaxed when you share. They like it, and they get nervous actually when you don't share as much. So I would say everything is electronic. It goes quickly over. They just fill things in and it keeps going. I mean, they have a lot of work to do, and unless there's a major flag, they're not gonna give it too much time. They really, really don't. The PSCT 10 is available to sophomores. If your school doesn't offer it, you can actually log on and try to find a site that you can jump into. Will colleges be looking over SAT, ACT scores, or will they not care anymore? I don't know. I think the UC system has said, hey, and they're a big customer base for the SAT test. They have said we are no longer using this as a test. But it's also tough because schools don't know what else to use as a little bit of a yardstick. A 4.0 one place and a 4.0 another place, you know, how do you know the difference? And there's a lot of grade inflation. So they're really trying to look for more information where they can get it. I don't know what's going to pop up in its place. How many times should you take the test? Can colleges see how many? Colleges only see what you share. So if you took it 3 times, you could show all 3, you could show 1, it's your choice. Again, I would say just share them all. They love it when you share, and they really don't think about it as much as we think, as the rumors have it. How many times should you take it? I think twice is a good number. 3 sometimes. If I've met a lot of people who just start feeling confident, they're like, I just want to see what I can do. If it's coming from you, you'll keep doing better. If it's coming like, oh, I'm supposed to do this, it'll probably stay the same. You should stop. How many points can you increase an SAT score in about 3 months, 3 hours of work? Yeah, I would say about that 100, 150 points. It really, really depends where you're starting, and it's not just time, it's quality. And we're overtime. Oh gosh, sorry. So it's 8:32. I will stay for a little bit more if you'd like. But I know that that survey needs to get out there too, and you guys also have a life to get to too. So thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Happy to continue to be a resource. I'll stay for a little bit longer. But yeah, I think Maya's gonna tell you a little bit more about this survey. You're very welcome. Well, you can probably see the survey, and I think it's coming to you at the chat, but it looks like the school district would appreciate it if you gave them some feedback about your night. A lot of work went into this night. I've been very impressed as a guest here, how many people care about getting you some good information. I don't think there are any more questions, but I'll stay on another minute or two. I see one. In the next 2 years, do you think out-of-state colleges will make SAT, ACT optional? There are hundreds and hundreds of schools, and I think the majority of them will. I wish it were just a one blanket answer. Just there are so many different schools, and they each get to do whatever the heck they want for admissions. And some might start their own tests. Some might, it's hard to know. But there's definitely some energy about, is this the right thing? And the same energy applies for other fields, you know. I don't need to get into all that. Oh, that's so interesting. If anybody's still out there, one of the questions is, can SAT, ACT scores reflect the other tests we take? I do think if you are getting comfortable taking multiple choice and taking time tests and piercing out information, you will do better on other multiple choice tests, standardized tests, and standardized tests might come up again after college even. Can SAT, ACT scores reflect other tests we take? SAT and ACT scores are not like the tests you take in high school, if that's what you're talking about. All right, well, it's 8:35. Have a lovely rest of your night. Good luck out there. Be safe. Thanks for your time.